Children of same-sex parents. How's life for you? I have two moms plus a foster mom. So I am both the child of LGBT parents and the child of divorce. When people ask me questions, how do you live? Do you feel like you're missing something? I usually answer, I don't know. What's it like to have a father? We do have a lot of issues in our family, so I definitely feel like I'm missing some things. But I don't think the fact that I was raised only by women played a major role in that. The main problem for me, the child of an LGBT couple, was the parents of other children. Many parents did not allow their children to go out with me, and when they saw me around, they asked strange, intrusive questions and allowed themselves to say different things. I never realized the parents of the other kids would be a major problem in this case. You need to spread the word somehow. I think most of the harsh language I've ever heard is from judgmental parents of other kids when I was a kid. And that's the worst, because if you don't respond at that age, you won't be able to stand up for yourself in the future. So it makes sense to me why other parents gave you the most trouble. I know a dude who was raised by two moms. When someone asks him, "Who taught you that?" he always says his dad. His mom used a sperm bank. The main problem for me, the child of an LGBT couple, was the parents of other children. Ugh. When I was a kid, my little brother had a best friend who had LGBT parents. The boys were 4 years old at the time. His friend's mom gave him a note for our mom that asked if he could come over to our house to play. There was a subtle hint of her partner in the note. Basically, she had to ask for permission to be friends, because there were a lot of other parents who got really pissed off when they found out, after an outing with their kids, that their kid's friend's mom was a lesbian. And this was all happening in the 90s, in one of the most tolerant and cosmopolitan cities in the world. Fuck. I still remember how upset my mom was when it was explained to her that parents get pissed off when they find out their kids are playing with an LGBT couple's kid. For me, age 8 to 9, it was one of those moments when I realized that the world really is full of shit. When I was 3 years old, my father left my mother after a 10-year marriage. I don't remember it, but my mom still feels lousy even after 2 long-term relationships. Since my dad divorced my mom, he's had 2 same-sex marriages. I think he and his current husband are both awesome. And I don't care that my dad is gay. Even though my mom keeps telling me that it's unnatural, my dad loves his boyfriend, who in turn loves my dad. The rest of it shouldn't bother anyone. I just get on with my life, and I'm always happy to meet my dads. They made a huge effort to raise me and cared for me more than my mother did in her entire life. The only problem is when you have one biological father and 2 stepfathers. Father's Day becomes a really costly holiday. I'm all for same-sex marriage and all that, but I can't help but sympathize with your mom. I'd be fucking pissed too if at some point my wife walked out and said, "I like women now, so fuck you." I think the whole marriage was a sham, and that I'd been told some bullshit all along. My mom realized she was lesbian when I was about 6 years old, so I grew up with 2 moms for most of my life. In addition, I should add that I have no uncles, and my brother is gay, so I grew up in an effeminate family, to say the least. I can't deny that it has made me more feminine in the conventional sense. I am much more open to showing emotions than most of my peers. I really enjoy compliments, and I like to talk about deep topics. In other words, you become the guy all women want. My mom is also a lesbian, and as a man, I totally agree that I am much more emotionally driven than the average man, and it's easier for me to talk about. I am grateful for my upbringing, and wouldn't want things to turn out any other way. Same thing. I've noticed that I have a very easy attitude towards showing my emotions. Much easier than most of my peers. Why don't you guys teach us how to do that? I usually call it confidence in your masculinity. It's like with narcissistic egomaniacs. Guys who feel strongly about their masculinity are less likely to indulge in all things feminine, and more likely to see everything as a threat to their self-esteem. I feel the same way, having been raised by a single heterosexual woman. My dad left when I was 8, and she didn't remarry until I was already grown up. So for most of my life, I was raised by my mom alone. I don't know if I could be called feminine. I'm more like, not very masculine. All in all, I think that's not a bad thing. I have 3 daughters now, and I have a great relationship with them. I used to worry about not being able to be a real male role model for my sons. I was adopted at birth by an interracial gay couple. This was in the early 90s, when it was extremely difficult for LGBT couples, especially gay couples, to adopt a child. For most of my childhood, I was the only girl in school who had 2 dads. That being said, I lived in a liberal American city with a huge LGBT community. I was always special. I always had to explain myself a lot to my peers, and sometimes I was even banned from some school activities because I had 2 dads. Honestly, it was the only shitty moment of my growing up. I have wonderful fathers. I think the fact that they had to wait so long and go through so many obstacles to adopt me made them even more responsible parents. Not annoying or overprotective by any means, but just reliable and aware parents. Since I was not an unwanted child, as many children are, my parents were truly prepared, emotionally and financially, to take on the extremely difficult task of raising a child. Compared to my peers, my childhood had a major impact on who I am today. My parents were never afraid of awkward questions about growing up, like my first period, buying a bra, going on a first date, and so on. At the same time, they always emphasized that I have a huge number of women among my family and close family friends to turn to if I want to talk about girl stuff with a woman. I am still friends with my birth mother and am truly grateful to her for giving me to my awesome parents. Although my family has experienced many instances of discrimination, both implicit and explicit, my dads have always set a great example, never backing down, never letting ignorant and evil people win. They instilled in me the realization that it is important to be yourself and never be ashamed or apologize for who you are. I consider myself a real anti-example to all the bigots who claim that children from LGBT families are somehow traumatized or have problems caused by the absence of a father or mother. I am happier and more successful in life than many children from traditional families I know. I have cool dads, and I feel like the luckiest girl in the world for having them, and I don't regret a damn thing. I am a birth mother who gave her child to a gay couple. Since this is the first and only such experience, I had many questions and fears about how this decision might affect my daughter. Your story has given me great hope. What's it like being the child of same-sex parents? Well, it's basically the same as being gay. You don't give a shit, but the assholes around you make your life harder. I had a friend who once told me that he was half Irish, to which I replied, "But your moms aren't Irish." It wasn't until later that I realized. Reminds me of American Family. Lily tells Gloria she's a lesbian. Gloria is shocked because the kid is only 6 years old. Gloria tells Mitch and Cam, who are standing right next to her, and Lily was like, "Well, my friend's parents are Italian, and he's Italian. My parents are gay, so I'm lesbian." Well, when I was 8, my mom divorced my dad to be with her lesbian partner. My mom and her lover dated for 10 years until her friend died suddenly. And now my mom is married to a woman who has never had sex with a man, yet has 2 children with a sperm donor. They are about my age. Her long-term partner also died suddenly. So she and my mom kind of found each other. If you had asked me or my brother this question in middle school or high school, we would have answered that although an LGBT family is obviously better than no family at all, LGBT families lack what traditional families have, a view from both genders. However, after meeting my free-spirited siblings who never had a father, the 5 of us sat down to discuss our growing up and realized why we felt that way. Well, it's like asking us, how would you feel if your father wasn't around? Of course, it was a strange feeling. The more we discussed how our emotional and material needs were met, all the family friends that were with us throughout our childhood, the more we realized that if we had been born into a family where we originally only had 2 moms, we would never have started to feel anything like this. Still, it was a pretty strange development. But I think my confusion as a child was due to the fact that those around me reasoned and argued about our situation, rather than accepting it as fact. I guess that makes sense, as in the fact that a child's psychological problems have more to do with parental divorce and remarriage than anything special like a same-sex parent. I feel pretty much the same way. I was raised by a single mom. When my sister was born, my moms had already been together for 8 years. Then, 3 years later, I was born. I knew we were different from most families, but I grew up with parents who loved and supported me no matter what stupid thing I did. And now as an adult, I appreciate that even more. I know plenty of people with heterosexual parents who can't boast the same. One of my mothers, not my biological mother, had sex reassignment surgery when I was 19, and it was a challenging time. My mom became a father, and I had trouble using the correct pronouns, which often upset him, and everything around us was a real challenge. Later, things settled down, and he moved back to the West Coast where he originally came from. Things didn't work out with my mom. They didn't get along for a few years before the sex change. We all kept in touch and had a great relationship considering we were 2,000 miles apart. He died of a brain tumor in September. I miss him every day. I really think I was raised to be more open, loving, kind, and non-judgmental. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I was raised by my biological parents for the first 12 years of my life. I ended up in foster care and was adopted by a woman I am proud to call my mother today. She is a lesbian, and honestly, she and my stepmother are the most wonderful people in my life. I am also a lesbian. I have a beautiful wife, and we have a wonderful daughter. My mom saved my life, literally saved me from jail and drugs. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. I don't regret anything and couldn't ask for better parents. I hope this isn't too intrusive, but what happened to your birth parents who put you in foster care when you were 12? I've heard of children being placed with other families as adults, but I'm interested in your story. Biological father was a drug addict, substance abuser, and for many years sold me for drugs. My biological mom left us and left me with him. The school finally realized something was wrong and listened to me when I brought his crack-smoking pipe. I spent years washing my head in the school sinks and cleaning vomit all over the house. It was horrible. Turns out he wasn't my biological father, and his family didn't want a broken child who wasn't their own. I visited other families before my foster mom finally found me. I was 16. However, without that experience, I would not be the person I am today. So no, it's not too intrusive. I've gotten over it all and have calmed down. Thank you very much for watching this episode. In the comments below the video, you can write what you think about all of this, and maybe we have children from same-sex couples. Write what you think about it. As always, your likes and comments help a lot in channel progress. See you soon.